Now, Mohammad Siraj was asked at the end of day one's play in the fourth test match between India and England that how do you see India's batting go from here? And he said, well, I expect to put my feet up for the next 2 days and relax. Well, I hate to break it to Siraj if you're listening that it may not be 2 days. In fact, maybe 2 more sessions and you may be out just bowling with that ball. You are watching ESPN Cricket for Match Day, which is powered by Realme X75G and X75G Pro. And before Siraj comes out to bowl, I'm going to bowl a few loose ones to Sanjay Manjrekar, who joins me on the show. Sanjay, let's start with England's comeback. You take a look at the previous test match, India 99 for 3. You think you're comfortable and 140 all out. Before that as well, I think they were 300 for 6, then 320 not out. This English team is always in the game. They're never giving up.
Yes, and there was a general perception, Nikhil, after the last test, the pink ball test match, that India was the far strongest side and England had no chance of coming back and they were completely thrashed. But I'm sure a lot of people would have looked at what was happening on the field very closely. And that wasn't the case. And the reason for that is because they have the likes of Joe Root, Ben Stokes, Jimmy Anderson, and also the fact that the Indian batting this series hasn't been convincing. And we said yesterday as well on the show that perhaps what will eventually become the deciding factor or the difference between the two teams is the spin attack of the two teams. Because batting-wise, there isn't much to choose because India have some batting issues. And with the way Jimmy Anderson is bowled and Stokes as well, who knows that spin advantage that India have might just be neutralized by England with their seamers.
Okay, Sanjay, we'll start by looking at the wickets now. Before we discuss that, here's a quick quiz question for all the viewers who are watching. Tell me the last time Virat Kohli got out for 2 ducks in a series. It's happened in this series. It's happened once before. So send in your answers if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll have a look at those and probably announce a few names as well. Coming back to that Virat Kohli dismissal, Sanjay, you reckon I'm just gauging from the reaction he gave, a bit surprised by that extra bounce from Stokes?
See, yesterday as well, again, that's something that we talked on ESPN Match Day, that this pitch has looked a little different in the sense that it's got a little more bounce. Even Ashwin, when he was bowling slower, flighted deliveries, there was more bounce. There was more bounce for Washington Sundar. So even Mohammad Siraj, when he bowled the odd short length delivery, there was bounce. And we saw how Rishabh Pant collected the first few balls from Ishant Sharma. So there is bounce in this pitch. Plus the fact that the SG test ball has a spongy nature to it. It gets a little soft, so it tends to bounce a little more than the extra lacquered, pink ball. So a combination of that just allowed Ben Stokes to use the pitch. And this is what Ben Stokes is very good at. And he's done that before in the subcontinent, where he comes in and bowls these kind of spells where he uses the short ball like no other foreign seamer does. So that was a great delivery. I mean, just to produce that kind of a delivery on this pitch, it wasn't just the steep bounce, just the movement, the line. And who was batting at the other? And you're talking about one of the modern day batting greats completely sort of exposed by Ben Stokes. So that was the sheer brilliance of Ben Stokes, the cricketer, on this occasion, the bowler.
Just talking about Ben Stokes, the bowler, couldn't have been easy for him. The first 3 test matches completely under bowled, so comes in very cold in this test match, and then to crank it up like that.
Yes, I don't know if this was forced onto him, whether he could have bowled a few more overs in the earlier test matches, but because England had the comfort of having a few other options, hardly bowled in the series. But now he's bowling his heart out because there's no other seamer. And I just like to see England do the smart thing and not go to best too much just because he's one of the regular bowlers, because we've seen in that little spell that his bowling is conceded a few runs. So Joe Root should be the preferred off spinner before Best, unless Best, gets his rhythm back. But to come back to Ben Stokes, he knew he didn't have a choice, and this is why, who makes things happen. And often you'll see him like he did in that series in Sri Lanka, when Sri Lanka lost to England the last time they were there. Ben Stokes was, making that little difference at the right time, and he may have done that in this Test match with the wicket of Virat Kohli.
Okay, the question that I asked our viewers, when was the other time that Virat Kohli got 2 ducks in a series? Plenty of you have got that answer right. Sajjal, I can see Shruti Singh, Sudeep Vetla, Shubham Pathak, all of you got that right. Shashank Sharma as well, Hiren Patel. It was indeed the 2014 tour to England. Just drawing a comparison from that tour, Sanjay, that particular tour, there was a glaring mistake that Virat Kohli was committing. There was a glaring fault there. This time around, there doesn't seem to be any issue as such. Why is it that he's not having a great series by his lofty standards?
This is one of the truths of the sport, and one of the inevitables as well. Only Don Bradman has escaped this reality. Most great batsmen have gone through these kind of patches. So to say that this is the reason why he's had a run of low scores. Having said that, he's got a couple of good scores as well in the series, but by his standards, it's not been quite the same. Also, the fact that the pitches in the series have been such that it's not been a high-scoring one. If you remember, when South Africa was in India, India was winning Test matches, but none of the batsmen were getting runs until Ajinkya Rahane got those 200s in 2 innings. So that has also contributed. And he's got out different ways, isn't it? He's got out to spinners. He's got out to a great delivery from Ben Stokes. This is a guy who loves to play pace and bounce. This is a guy who's got 400s in Australia in one series. So this is just one of those things. And one of the inevitables of the game. I always say that when you see people like Virat Kohli having a little bit of a rut.
Ajinkya Rahane's dismissal, you'd say, came at a very unfortunate time for India, because if India had to stamp its authority on this Test match, that was a crucial partnership, and it happened just before lunch.
Yeah, good move, good tactics from England right through. Maybe Jack Leach in the morning could have come a little earlier, but just love the way they use their 2 seamer. They've just got 2, and they've realized that Jack Leach is one spinner they can rely on, and not too many. So they're greatly hampered, unlike India, who have got 4 good bowling options that will never release pressure. Joe Root had to work with 3 bowlers. Stokes, fortunately, delivering the goods there. Jimmy Anderson and Jack Leach, and he's got to work around the others. So great move to have Jimmy Anderson bowling that first spell in the morning, then keeping him fresh for exactly this, another burst just before lunch. And to come back to Ajinkya Rahane's wicket, every time I see him bat these days, I just don't get the comfort that Ajinkya Rahane is in. He doesn't give you that kind of security that a team needs or his fans would want to see. Just something that's been wrong with his batting for a long time now.
Just that also signify, I'm looking at his strike rate, which was rather good. He gets that 27 of 45 balls. Is that a sign of a batsman that does feel some sort of mental pressure? Because when you are under that sort of pressure, that's when you try and play a bit aggressive cricket. And he'd seem very different to all the other Indian batsmen that had batted so far in this Test match.
Yes, because Rohit Sharma was, in fact, slower than Pujara with the first 15 runs that he got. So yes, Ajinkya Rahane stood out with approach, but Ajinkya Rahane has batted in this fashion in the last 3-4 years. There have been occasions when he's come in and just started playing his shots. There have been occasions when he's taken his time, like in New Zealand, he just grafted right through that series. But on this occasion, and even when he plays in this fashion, not all the shots that we saw in that little innings were convincing. That little pull shot that he played to a short ball. Then there was a Jimmy Anderson ball that was full outside the off stump, and he got into an awkward position. So yes, he scored freely, but wasn't giving too much confidence, I'm sure, to the batsmen who were watching from the dressing room. So just one of those things where you must have felt that might as well play some shots. I see Ajinkya Rahane these days, every time I see him bat slightly short of confidence, a batsman who seems extremely insecure.
That was quite visible in the press conference that he did. Seemed very edgy, very unlike Ajinkya Rahane. Anyway, I'm moving to that point that you talk about Rohit Sharma, Sanjay, that he was rather slow to begin with and then changed gears. I wonder why that happened. of him changing the gears just before lunch? Was it a case of him getting a bit set, getting used to the conditions, or do you think those two short balls, one that came to Virat Kohli that got him out, that extra bounce, the other one that hit him on his helmet, doesn't happen very often with a Rohit Sharma. After seeing that extra bounce, or probably not being very assured of the bounce of the pitch, that's when he decided to change things around?
I don't think so. What you could see clearly with regards to intent, sometimes it's just a reaction to a ball, and if you get a few balls to hit, you hit those balls, and suddenly there's a bit of a surge in your batting and run scoring. He went after Dom Bess. The moment he saw Bess come into action, there was an intent. You saw that lofted shot that he played, which he didn't try against Jack Leach and the others. So what is different from Rohit Sharma and the rest is Rohit Sharma is looking extremely secure, relaxed, confident in defense. And that is the reason bulk of the that we saw in that morning session, he was very happy defending because there's a kind of a relaxed demeanor. There's this deep down trust in his own defense. And that is why you see Rohit Sharma batting the way he's doing. In fact, India found him to be the more reliable batsman, the most reliable batsman in the series. And that is entirely because of how better he is with regards to his defense. In overseas conditions, there's still some work Rohit Sharma needs to do, but in these conditions, he is more than his hitting ability. He has that name which I'm not a big fan of, hitman. It's more about defense that you see from Rohit Sharma, and the technique also has looked very solid. So I don't think it's a short ball that got him to play a little more attackingly later. It's just the combination of the bowler changing and the kind of deliveries that he got. And I think his intent against Bess will continue to be the same.
Then we'll have to wait and watch whether Root comes in place of Bess. As Sanjay said, that he would have liked to have seen Joe Root come ahead of Don Bess. But talking about defense, Sanjay, there's another batsman who's well known for his defense, is Cheteshwar Pujara. But I'm going to talk about his dismissal, a straighter one from Leach. Getting out is one thing, but it is in identical fashion. Last test, same bowler, similar sort of delivery, gets out in similar fashion.
Yes, and I just tweeted about it, Nikhil, and 4 times in the series when he's got out. What is glaring and interesting to note that every time he's been out batting from the crease, in the sense defending from the crease. Now, what is new about that? It is very new with Cheteshwar Pujara, who has this very unique approach and mindset that when he's also looking to defend, even when he's looking to draw matches like we saw in Australia, he will step out to defend a Nathan Lyon. He'll step out to defend a spinner. So that is Pujara's very unique technique. I'm not a big fan of stepping out and defending because I remember Ramakant Achrekar never used to like that. He said if you're going to step out and give the option of the for the bowler to get you off stump, might as well step out to play aggressively. If you're going to defend from the crease, either of the front foot or back foot. But Pujara has been extremely successful with this very different approach of going down the pitch, dancing down the pitch, and defending. What Jack Leach has done in this series, he hasn't allowed Pujara to do that as much. Nathan Lyon with his flight, it just gives him a little more time to go down the pitch and smother the spin and stuff like that. Jack Leach, faster trajectory, his average speed also has increased from the first test to this one. So he's sort of stifled Pujara. And when Pujara is forced to defend a spinner from the crease, that's when he becomes a little vulnerable. And that's where Jack Leach has been very good. So it's not been leg before the time. There have been occasions when he's been caught it firstly. But the similarity in all the dismissals against Jack Leach is that he's been forced to defend from the crease.
Interesting point, Sanjay, because there was this one instance before he got out where he did dance down the wicket and defended to Leach, but only once. And as you're talking about it, that probably this is something that he has to do rather often. But as you say, Leach would be a tough bowler to do that against. How is it then he handles someone like a Leach who's a quicker through in the air? What do you do? Keep your bat a little ahead of the pad? What do you do?
Yeah, exactly like how England batsmen tried to bat against the Indian spinners and how Rohit Sharma is batting and Virat Kohli in his short stay batted. So Pujara's issue is, and this is a technique that has given him exceptional results. So it's not going to be easy for him to get convinced that he's got to change his technique of stepping out and dancing down the pitch to defend, because that's how he survives and that's how he gets all those runs. That's how he survives and feels comfortable against spin. But he must have a degree of confidence defending spin from the crease as well. So maybe that is something that he can have as plan B, that if a bowler doesn't allow him to go down the pitch, then he should be able to feel reasonably comfortable defending from the crease.
Okay, before I finally get to what should be the strategy for the session that's coming up, here's a tough one for you. I told you that I'll bowl you very simple, half volleys. This is a tough one. Pick your man of the series for the moment. Is it Akshar Patel or is it Nitin Menon?
I'm glad you brought this topic out. Obviously, one of the spinners is likely to get the award, or maybe if you have somebody who likes to think out of the box, who might think that there was too much help for the bowler, so let's go for a batsman, the man of the series. But this is a very interesting topic and an important one, something that I've always believed in. For years, India produced world-class players. They produce all-time batting greats. They've been bowling greats. We've rarely had umpiring greats. India, like England have done in the past, and Australia to an extent, and South Africa have had their one or two. There have been a couple of good ones from Pakistan as well. India need to now take this as a mission that, along with all the other good things that we are doing, we are also going to give world cricket some top quality umpires. And I've seen one, Nitin Menon, who's already in the elite panel, and I'm sure this series will do him a world of good, because now he's reached that stage where, when there is a decision that he's given, players are now thinking twice whether they should review it. And that kind of hesitation is a great tick mark for the umpire. That happens when Erasmus is doing well, or Kumar Dharmasena as umpire. So players think, if he's given that not out, should we challenge that? They have a rethink about it. I think Nitin Menon is reaching that stage in this series. And I also believe Sharma is showing some potential. Anil Chaudhary has a good attitude, but he's got some work to do. But on the hierarchy of Indian umpires, Nitin Menon right up there. I'm really excited for this growth as an umpire.
One of my favorite Indian umpires was Venkat Raghavan. Sanjay, you played around the time that he was umpiring. What I liked the most about him is that he was a stern man, wouldn't ever, take any nonsense on the field.
Absolutely, and he got respect from the players. That is an advantage that a former player, a former India captain gets. So very rarely players would take him on, or put pressure on him. And that's one of the challenges for people like, say, Nitin Menon or all the Indian umpires when they umpire in IPL or in test matches like this. They just get a little more heat from the local players who feel more comfortable. So once you're a person who's had the kind of record like Venkat Raghavan had, just becomes a little easier. But having said that, Venkat Raghavan was very good in the time that umpires also have this thing of being in form at the top of the game. At the top of the game, Venkat Raghavan was one of India's best. In fact, maybe India's best. But we need far more umpires right up there on quality.
Now let's talk about where this game is heading. And as we spoke about Ajinkya Rahane's wicket coming at the wrong time for India. At one point, as I mentioned also at the start of the show, that India must be looking at batting big in the first innings. Now, would you say that they're in a situation where 205 seems to be the first target?
See, there was some kind of message that came through. One of the things that we did, that India is in a strong position. I don't think Ian Bell or myself or anyone thought India was in a strong position. We had to wait for 2 days to have a look at the pitch and look at England's response. Because once they got 205, it looked inadequate because the pitch wasn't playing wasn't as difficult as in the first two matches. But we needed to see Indian batting, because Indian batting off late, despite that historic win in Australia, the Brisbane Test, Indian batting issues are there for India to address, for Ravi Shastri to address, the selectors to address. So that was always going to be a little bit of a question mark, how India bats on this kind of a pitch. And we've seen it's not really the turn that has got India. It's more the quality of, three bowlers that has pushed India back foot. So it's not so much about the surface now. And I'm sure the Indian players will be glad that I'm saying this, not so much about the surface. It's about how India, bat with skills, regards to technique and just the resolve. And Rishabh Pant coming in would be interesting. And let's not forget Washington Sundar is also playing in this team because he's a handy batsman. So all these guys will now be tested, and we'll see how that goes.
I wonder why people got that impression that you were saying India is going to dominate, because I remember doing the Hindi show with you at the end of day one, and I was more bullish about India's chances. In fact, you were very cautious where you said that, no, we got to wait and watch. Let's wait and watch what happens in that first hour or first 2 hours, and then we'd be able to know whether India have that advantage or not. But as Sanjay points out, he'd rather see Joe Root now come on to bowl ahead of Dominic Bess, and then India have this longish batting now that has been enabled with the inclusion of an Akshar Patel, Ravichandran Ashwin in good form, and then you also have Washington Sundar. So we'll now see you at tea time. Sanjay, thanks so much for joining us. And you are watching ESPN Cricket Info Match Day. That was powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G.